He left me at the altar in front of 200 people, walked out during the vows without a word. What he didn't know was that I'd discovered his secret 3 days earlier, and I'd spent those 72 hours planning something he'd never see coming. I'm Casey, 29, and I need to walk you through how this happened, because the wedding day was just the finale. The real story started 6 months before that. I met Daniel when I was 25. He was a regional sales director for a tech company, drove a BMW he leased but pretended to own, wore suits that cost more than my rent. He had this confidence that felt magnetic at first. Looking back, it was arrogance dressed up as charisma. We dated for 2 years before he proposed at this expensive restaurant downtown, got down on one knee in front of the entire dining room. The ring was gorgeous, a 2-carat diamond that I later found out he bought on credit he couldn't afford. Planning the wedding was exhausting. Daniel wanted everything big, flashy, impressive, kept saying we needed to show people we'd made it. I worked as a graphic designer, making decent money, but nothing close to what this wedding cost. My parents contributed $15,000. His parents gave us nothing, said they'd already spent their money raising him. So we took out loans, maxed credit cards, went into debt for one day. The venue alone was $12,000. Daniel insisted on it, said anything less would look cheap. The photographer was $3,500. Catering for 200 guests was $18,000. Flowers, dress, tux rentals, DJ, cake, bar service. It never stopped. Total cost came to $68,000 for a single day. I had panic attacks looking at the numbers, but Daniel kept reassuring me. He'd say we'd pay it off together, that it was an investment in our future, that everyone would remember this forever. He was right about that last part, just not how he thought. 3 days before the wedding, I was at our apartment packing for the honeymoon. Daniel was supposedly at his bachelor party, some weekend trip to Vegas his college buddies had planned. I was folding clothes when his laptop pinged with a notification. He'd left it open on the kitchen counter. I wouldn't have looked, except the preview message made my stomach drop. It was from someone named Alexis. The message said, "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Wish you'd just tell her already." My hands went numb. I opened his laptop. Password was our anniversary date because he wasn't creative enough to pick anything else. Went straight to his messages. What I found made me physically sick. Daniel had been seeing Alexis for 8 months. Met her at a work conference, started hooking up, developed a full relationship behind my back. The messages were detailed, explicit, discussing a future together. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was what I found when I kept digging. He'd been lying about his job. Turned out he'd been fired 4 months ago for falsifying sales reports. He'd been pretending to go to work every day, actually meeting Alexis at her apartment, or sitting in coffee shops applying for new jobs he never got. The BMW payments were 3 months behind. The company was about to repossess it. His credit cards were maxed with cash advances he'd been using to maintain appearances. And the wedding? Our $68,000 wedding that I'd been losing sleep over? He'd taken out a personal loan for $30,000 in my name, forged my signature on the documents. I found the paperwork in his email, scanned copies of what looked like my signature but wasn't quite right. He'd used that money to cover his half of wedding expenses, plus pay off gambling debts I didn't know existed. I sat on our kitchen floor reading through everything for 3 hours. Messages where he told Alexis he'd leave me right after the wedding. Plans to take the honeymoon trip with her instead. Said he'd just tell me he needed space. Discussions about how he'd file for divorce and go after my design business assets in the settlement. Most people would have called off the wedding right then, confronted him, canceled everything, moved on. But I'd spent 2 years with this man, helped him celebrate promotions that never happened, believed lies about business trips that were actually weekends with her, went into debt for a wedding that was supposed to be our beginning. So I made a different choice. I decided to let him have his wedding day exactly as planned. I didn't confront him when he got back from Vegas, didn't mention Alexis or the loan or any of it. I smiled, confirmed final details with vendors, acted like everything was perfect. He had no idea I knew anything. Thursday night, rehearsal dinner went smoothly. His best man made a toast about Daniel being the luckiest guy alive. I laughed at all the right moments. Friday night, the night before the wedding, Daniel stayed at his parents' house. Tradition, he said. We weren't supposed to see each other until I walked down the aisle. I spent that night making phone calls, sending emails, putting pieces in place. Didn't sleep at all. Saturday morning arrived. Hair and makeup started at 7. My bridesmaids were excited, taking photos, drinking champagne. I went through the motions, let them curl my hair and paint my face. Put on the dress I'd spent $4,000 on. Looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. The wedding was at 2. Guests started arriving at 1:30. I watched from the bridal suite window as 200 people filed into the venue we couldn't afford. Daniel's college friends, our coworkers, distant relatives who'd traveled across the country. Everyone dressed up, holding gifts, expecting a celebration. At 1:45, my maid of honor came in. She said Daniel wanted to see me before the ceremony. I told her that was bad luck. She laughed, said he was insistent, that he was waiting in the library room downstairs. I went down. Daniel was standing by the window in his tux, looking nervous. When he saw me, his face did something complicated. For a second, I thought maybe he'd changed his mind about everything. Maybe he'd come clean. Instead, he said, "You look beautiful. I just wanted to tell you before we do this." I smiled. Do what, exactly? His expression shifted. Get married? Start our life together? What else? That's when I knew he was going through with it. Going to marry me, take the honeymoon money, then blindside me with divorce papers while bleeding my business dry. He'd planned this for months, and he thought I had no clue. What he didn't realize was that in 72 hours, I'd planned something too. The ceremony was supposed to start at 2. At 1:58, the coordinator gave the signal. Music started. Bridesmaids began their walk down the aisle. I stood at the back of the venue with my father, bouquet in hand, watching Daniel take his position at the altar. He was smiling, actually smiling, like he was about to get away with everything. I looked at him, standing there at the altar, at all those people waiting for a wedding that wasn't going to happen the way they expected. My dad squeezed my arm, ready to walk me down. But instead of moving forward, I turned and walked back down the hallway. The coordinator looked panicked. My bridesmaids started whispering. I went straight to the venue manager's office where I'd left my laptop that morning, opened it up, and pulled up the presentation I'd spent all night perfecting. Then I walked back out to the main hall, except this time I went through the side door that led directly to the front. Daniel saw me first. His smile faltered. I wasn't coming down the aisle. I was walking straight across the front of the venue toward the microphone the officiant was using. Grabbed it right out of his hand. The music stopped. Everyone went silent. 200 faces staring at me in confusion. Daniel's face had gone white. He knew something was wrong, but couldn't figure out what. I looked out at all those people, took a breath, and started talking. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. I know you're expecting a wedding right now, but we need to have a different conversation first. You see, 2 weeks ago, I found out my fiancé has been planning to divorce me before we even got married. Found out he's been lying about pretty much everything for the past 6 months. His job, his income, his business trips, all of it. Lies. The room erupted. People started talking over each other. Daniel tried to grab the microphone. I stepped back, kept talking. His best man was halfway out of his seat. Daniel's mom looked like she might faint. But I wasn't done. Most of you know I own a small marketing firm. What you might not know is that Daniel convinced me to take out a $70,000 business loan 6 months ago. Said he had investment opportunities. Said we'd double the money before the wedding. I trusted him because I loved him and because you trust the person you're about to marry. Except he never invested that money. He spent it. On what, you ask? I connected my laptop to the venue's projection system. The screen behind the altar lit up. Bank statements appeared, transaction histories, every receipt, every transfer, every lie documented in spreadsheet form. The crowd went completely silent. $62,000 spent in 6 months. Vegas trips, 5 of them. Luxury hotels, bottle service at clubs, designer clothes, a Rolex. Payments to someone named Alexis Monroe for rent, groceries, gifts, and my personal favorite, an engagement ring. Not the one on my finger. A different one. I pulled up the photo from the jewelry store receipt. A 3-carat diamond, princess cut, white gold band. Cost $12,000. Bought 3 weeks ago. Daniel tried rushing the stage. His groomsmen grabbed him, held him back. He was yelling something, but I couldn't hear over the chaos in the room. I kept going. For anyone wondering who Alexis Monroe is, she's Daniel's girlfriend. Has been for 8 months. She thinks Daniel's a successful investment banker who travels for work. She has no idea he's getting married today. Or that he's actually a mid-level sales rep who got fired 4 months ago and has been lying about going to work every day since. She definitely doesn't know he was planning to marry me, take the honeymoon money my parents gave us, then file for divorce while draining my business through a fraudulent partnership agreement he had me sign last month. Daniel's dad stood up, face purple with rage. He started yelling at his son. Daniel's mom was crying. My bridesmaids looked stunned. Half the room was taking out their phones, recording everything. This was going to be all over social media within the hour. Perfect. Now, I could have just called off the wedding privately, could have handled this like a mature adult. But Daniel didn't just lie to me. He stole from me. He defrauded my business. He manipulated me into signing legal documents that would have destroyed everything I built. And he was going to do all of this while pretending to love me in front of all of you. So I figured he deserved a public reckoning. I pulled up the next slide. Text messages between Daniel and Alexis. Dozens of them. Screenshots of him talking about how I was his meal ticket, how he just needed to get through the wedding, how he'd be free soon. Messages about their real future together while he was planning a fake one with me. Some of them were from last night while I was getting my nails done for this wedding. The venue had descended into complete chaos. People were shouting. Daniel had broken free from his groomsmen and was trying to get to me. Security stepped in, 2 guys I had specifically hired that morning. They blocked him while I finished. Here's what's going to happen now. This wedding is canceled, obviously. Daniel's going to be served with a lawsuit on Monday morning for fraud, theft, and breach of contract. My lawyers already filed the paperwork. I'm also pressing criminal charges for the forged documents he used to access my business accounts. Oh, and Daniel, about that partnership agreement you had me sign, my lawyer reviewed it. It's completely invalid because you lied about your credentials and financial status. Turns out, when you commit fraud to get someone to sign a contract, that contract doesn't hold up in court. Who knew? Daniel lunged forward again. Security grabbed him, started escorting him out. He was screaming about how I was ruining his life, how I was crazy, how this was all a misunderstanding. His mom ran after them. His dad just stood there, looking destroyed. Most of the guests were filming on their phones. Some were already leaving. A few were actually clapping, mostly my coworkers who'd never liked Daniel anyway. I turned off the projector, handed the microphone back to the very confused officiant, and walked off stage. My maid of honor caught up with me in the hallway. She grabbed my shoulders, eyes wide. What the hell just happened? Justice, I said. What happens to the venue, the food, everything? I already paid for it. Tell people to stay and eat if they want. No point wasting it. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Then she started laughing. That uncontrollable kind of laughter that comes from shock and disbelief, and maybe a little bit of awe. I changed out of my wedding dress in the bridal suite, took off the custom gown that cost me $4,000 and hung it carefully in the garment bag, put on jeans and a sweater I'd stashed earlier that morning. My maid of honor sat on the couch watching me like I was a different person. "You planned this whole thing, didn't you?" she asked. I zipped up my bag. Every detail, the presentation, the security guards, the timing, all of it. How long have you known? 2 weeks. Found the first suspicious transaction on a Wednesday night while Daniel was supposedly at a work conference. Except his company doesn't do conferences in April. Started digging after that. She shook her head slowly. Most people would have just called off the wedding. Most people didn't spend 6 years building a business from nothing only to have some fraud try to steal it. I grabbed my bag and we walked back out to the venue. The scene was surreal. About half the guests had actually stayed. They were eating the expensive food I'd paid for, drinking the premium bar, treating it like the world's most awkward cocktail party. Daniel's side of the family had completely cleared out. My side was still there, mostly looking shell-shocked, but supportive. My dad found me near the bar, pulled me into a hug without saying anything. When he finally let go, his eyes were wet. "I'm sorry you had to go through this," he said. "I'm not. Better now than after signing those papers." He nodded. "What do you need from me?" "Nothing. I've got it handled." "That's what I'm afraid of. You've always got it handled. Sometimes it's okay to fall apart a little." "I'll fall apart later. Right now, I need to make sure the legal paperwork is airtight." My lawyer, Marcus, appeared at my elbow, holding a plate of shrimp. He'd been a guest at the wedding, but had clearly shifted into work mode. "Daniel's father wants to talk," he said between bites. "Says they want to resolve this privately." "I bet they do. What's he offering?" "Full repayment of everything Daniel took, plus your legal fees. In exchange, you drop the criminal charges." "Counteroffer. Full repayment, legal fees, an additional $50,000 for emotional distress, and I still press charges." Marcus almost choked on his shrimp. "That's aggressive." "He stole from me while planning to marry me. Aggressive is appropriate." "Fair point. I'll communicate the terms." He wandered off to make calls. My best friend from college, Rachel, came over with 2 glasses of champagne. "You're insane," she said, handing me one. "I mean that as a compliment." "I've been called worse today." "What happens now?" "Now I go home, order takeout, and watch everyone post about this on social media, while I file restraining orders." "Very romantic." "Yeah, well, romance is dead. Turns out it was murdered by fraud and embezzlement." She clinked her glass against mine. To dodging bullets. To dodging bullets. We drank. The champagne was excellent. $70 a bottle. Daniel's dad had insisted on the expensive stuff. Funny how that worked out. My phone started buzzing. Text messages rolling in from people who'd already left. Most were supportive. A few were from Daniel's friends, calling me psycho, telling me I overreacted. I blocked those numbers without responding. Then one caught my attention. From Alexis, the mistress herself. You ruined his life over nothing. He loved you. We were just friends. I stared at it for a long moment. Considered responding with the screenshots of their messages, the proof of their actual relationship. Decided it wasn't worth it. Blocked her number too. Marcus came back looking pleased with himself. Daniel's father agreed to your terms. Wants to wire the money Monday morning. And the criminal charges? Still happening. I told him those weren't negotiable. His face fell. Started threatening to fight this in court. Let him. We've got documentation of everything. Bank statements, forged signatures, witness testimony from your accountant. He's not winning this fight. Marcus left again to finalize details. The venue was starting to empty out. My family was collecting centerpieces, boxing up leftover cake, treating it like the world's strangest family reunion. My mom approached carefully. She'd been keeping her distance all afternoon, probably unsure how to handle her daughter publicly destroying her wedding. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Fine. Weirdly fine, actually." "You don't have to be fine. What he did was horrible." "I know. But I caught him before he could do real damage. The business is safe. My money's coming back. And I don't have to spend the rest of my life married to a liar." She pulled me into a hug. "I'm proud of you. Scared of you a little bit, but mostly proud." I laughed, despite myself. Yeah, I might have gone slightly overboard with the presentation. Slightly? Honey, you turned your wedding into a true crime documentary. In my defense, it was very effective. She stepped back, studying my face. "What are you going to do now?" "Now, I'm going to rebuild. Take some time off, maybe travel. Definitely change all my passwords. I'm serious. So am I. Mom, I just blew up my entire life in front of 200 people. I need to figure out what comes next." "You could start by forgiving yourself." "For what?" "For not seeing it sooner. For trusting him. For whatever you're telling yourself you should have known." I hadn't realized I was doing that until she said it. The little voice in my head asking how I'd missed the signs, why I'd let it get this far. "I'll work on it," I said quietly. "Good. And Elaine, for what it's worth, you handled this better than most people would have. Most people would have just cried and called it off." "Exactly. You turned it into a masterclass in accountability." The venue manager approached, looking uncomfortable. "Miss Thompson, we need to start breakdown. Are you ready for us to clear the space?" "Go ahead. We're done here." Done was the right word. This chapter of my life ended the moment I clicked that first slide. Everything now was just cleanup. I walked out to my car alone, threw my bag in the trunk, sat in the driver's seat for a moment, just breathing. My phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from Daniel's lawyer. A formal message requesting I reconsider the criminal charges, citing his previously clean record and promising full cooperation. I deleted it without responding, started the car, and pulled out of the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I could see the venue lit up against the evening sky. the place where I was supposed to get married, where instead I'd chosen to burn everything down. No regrets, not one. The fallout was only beginning. The legal letters started arriving within days. Daniel's attorney sent 3 separate demands, each more desperate than the last. They wanted mediation, arbitration, anything to avoid criminal prosecution. I forwarded them all to Marcus without responding. Week 1 was phone calls. Daniel's mother left tearful voicemails begging me to reconsider, saying her son made a mistake but didn't deserve to have his life ruined. His sister sent emails explaining family hardship, medical bills, the usual sympathy plays. I blocked every number and filtered every address. His friends tried reaching out through social media. Mutual acquaintances sent messages asking if we could talk, if there was any way to work this out privately. One guy I barely knew sent a paragraph about forgiveness and second chances. I deleted my accounts entirely. Easier than managing the constant flood of people who thought my business was their concern. Week 2 brought the financial reckoning. Marcus filed the civil suit, claiming damages for the full amount Daniel had stolen, plus legal fees and punitive damages. We were going after everything: his car, his savings, future wages if necessary. The forensic accountant had traced every dollar. Turned out, Daniel had been siphoning money for 18 months, not just the last few. Small amounts at first, then larger chunks as he got bolder. The prosecutor's office called Wednesday afternoon. Detective named Sarah Chen, who'd been assigned the case. She walked me through what would happen next. Grand jury indictment, arraignment, probably a plea deal offer before trial. Daniel's lawyer was already signaling willingness to negotiate. "What kind of sentence are we looking at?" I asked. With his record and the amount involved, probably 3 to 5 years if convicted. Less if he takes a plea and shows remorse. And restitution? That's guaranteed either way. Court will order full repayment on a schedule. Whether he actually pays it is another question. I thanked her and hung up. 3 to 5 years felt simultaneously too much and not enough. Too much because, despite everything, I'd loved him once. Not enough because he'd systematically betrayed me for 1.5 years without hesitation. My business partner Rachel called that evening. We'd been avoiding the elephant in the room since the wedding, keeping our conversations strictly professional. But tonight she broke protocol. "How are you really doing?" Honestly, I don't know. Some days I'm furious. Other days I just feel empty. That's normal. You're grieving. Grieving what? A relationship that was built on lies? Grieving the version of him you thought you knew. That person was real to you, even if he wasn't actually real. She had a point. The Daniel I'd fallen for, the one who brought me coffee in bed and remembered my favorite movies, that person never existed. Just a performance designed to access my bank account. "Rachel, do you think I'm crazy for how I handled it? The slideshow at your own wedding?" Pause. Absolutely unhinged. Also completely justified, and honestly, kind of brilliant. I laughed for the first time in days. That's the validation I needed. People ask if I'd do it differently. The answer is always no. Could I have handled it privately? Sure. But Daniel's entire strategy relied on my silence, on me being too embarrassed or conflict-averse to make waves. He counted on me protecting his reputation more than I protected myself. That calculation was wrong. The business survived, actually thrived once I stopped hemorrhaging money into his schemes. Turns out when you're not funding someone else's double life, you have a lot more resources for growth. Did I trust people the same way after? No. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Blind trust isn't a virtue. It's just an invitation for the wrong people to take advantage. Now I trust carefully, verify thoroughly, and keep my financial passwords to myself. That venue where everything imploded is still in business. Drive past it sometimes on my way to client meetings. Doesn't hurt anymore. Just exists as a building where something necessary happened. The Daniel situation taught me the difference between being kind and being a doormat. You can be a good person without letting people steal from you. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's survival. So yeah, I destroyed his life that day. But he'd already destroyed mine, just more slowly and quietly. I simply refused to go down alone.